What is up, Planeswalkers Theoric 6, back with some more Magic the Gathering, technically, Arena. What I'm going to do today is do something that's, I guess, educational. I think this is something that might help people out who are, playing Magic for the first time or just started relatively recently, and they're not entirely sure how to upgrade their decks that they already have when a new set comes out. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to literally go through what I usually do when a new set comes out and I want to upgrade a deck. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be perfect because of the fact that I'm not going to look at old cards and how they might be improved with new cards. Instead, I'm just going to try and utilize the new cards that I think are important and integrate them essentially into what I already have as a baseline. The reason I'm doing that is because it would be a lot longer for me to go over what I really usually do. So yeah, before we get into any more of that, of course, I would like you to head over to flipsidegaming.com, use promo code 6 for 10% off on orders over $10. It's a great deal. It helps support the show. And right now you can get those sweet singles pre-order over on Flipside Gaming. Now, what I usually do when I am making a deck entirely from scratch, essentially, is I go ahead and get some... I try and see if anyone has done a similar deck. And what I'll do is I will look at as many of these deck lists as I can and just generate ideas. And what I will typically do is I will make a note, or actually just add them to the deck, all of the cards that are in every single deck, right? So I am doing this for Bolas Control, and let's say that in the new cards, I see for some reason everyone's playing, let's just scroll down to blue, everyone is playing Finale of Revelation, right? If I see that, then what I'll do is I'll put it in the deck, because there's a reason that these people are playing Finale of Revelation. And what I'll end up doing is any card that's in these decks, let's say there are 3, that isn't shared between the 3, but is something that I think is a good option from just one of them, is I'll put that in. So let's say Commence the Endgame is in one of those 3 decks. I'll also add that, but I'll likely add it to the sideboard, or in this case, you can add it to a maybe board, I think. Yeah, you could add it to a maybe board. I'm inclined to use the sideboard because it imports the sideboard into Arena as well, and I use Aether Hub to go straight into Arena. But when I'm just upgrading a deck, so I'm not... Oh, I should note. After I do that, kind of get the skeleton of what I assume is most likely going to be in the deck, I go on Scryfall, and I do an advanced search. So that's over here. And what I do is I put literally the colors that I need. I do at most these colors, just because that's the correct thing to do for what I'm going to show you. And then I click, let's see, standard, or in this case, it would be future standard to include those new cards. What I'm going to do is just include War of the Spark cards. So this is the entirety of War of the Spark. This is sorted by set number here. And that's a helpful way to just kind of look at all of the things. But what I'm going to do here is, and I have my old deck up here, so what I'm going to do at the start here is I'm just going to essentially transfer the cards I know for certain are going to be in the main deck. I do apologize, there's going to be a little bit of clickety-clack, because I have like a real keyboard, so I will try my best to type not horribly, Nicol Bolas the Ravager. So we're definitely having Nicol Bolas in the main deck. I'm not sure about Thief of Sanity, because I don't know if this deck is going to become even heavier into the control route. But I do know that Thief of Sanity is very powerful and very helpful in a lot of control matchups, so I'm going to throw this in the sideboard. Carnival Carnage is a decent card, but it's not really a mainstay in the deck, so I don't think I need it. Cast Down is something that might be shifted because of the new dedication to black, because I know we're going to be more heavily invested in black because we're adding Nicol Bolas Dragon God, or God Dragon, or whatever the hell it's called. So Cast Down might actually be substituted for a better spell that happens to be more black mana symbols required. Similar to Cast Down, Chemist's Insight, there have been other draw spells that I've looked at that I'm like, oh, this is probably good. So let's keep hopping down until we get to a card that I know I'm going to play. Thought Erasure is something I know I'm going to play, so I'm going to put that in the main deck. Thank you. Can I please have Thought Erasure? Vraska Contempt, very similarly. This card is just so good, and it's probably only going to get better with all of these new Planeswalkers coming out. And then, of course, the mana base. I essentially just add one of each of the multicolored cards and one of each of the basics, because that's a nice base to work from. So let us go ahead and do Blood Crypt. Sulfur Falls. I'm just typing this in whatever order. And once again, I do hope that it is not too clickety. I'm trying my best to not be horrible. Watery Grave. Drowned Catacomb. Awkward. I don't know why I typed an A. What am I missing here? I'm missing steam vents. Steam vents. And then Island, Mountain, and Swamp. Swamp. Cool. So these are all of the cards that we know for certain we're going to put in the main deck. Since these are already in the sideboard, we're not sure we're going to play any of these, right? So now, let's go back to here. So from here, you can see all of the new cards that are going to be in your colors. And then you have to decide, based on what you want your deck to do, if this card is going to be worth it. One thing that I found helps is trying to get as much information as possible. So I saw that Star City Games, I believe, did a Versus Live that included a Nicol Bolas deck, a Grixis control deck essentially, and they used Angrath's Rampage to some decent effect. So we're going to go ahead and pop that into the sideboard. And the reason we're popping it into the sideboard is because as I said, I'm not entirely sure how the removal package is going to shake up, but we are going to add it because we do think it is decent. Angrath's Rampage. Angrath's Rampage. Thank you very much. And then you just, you go through the things. Augur of Bolas is potentially good. The only problem with this card is that it's instant or sorcery, and I'm likely going to be playing a decent number of non-instant sorceries, creatures as well as planeswalkers, because I do want to play planeswalkers as well. So I don't actually think this is very good in the version that I plan on building. Bleeding Edge is interesting, but I think it's better in a specifically zombie deck. Let's see here. Chandra, not really important. I actually do think that Commence the Endgame is pretty important, because it's just like one of those. It's in the SCG game they compared it to Torrential Gearhulk, and I'm inclined to agree. I think this is a very strong card. I don't think there were very many. Oh, Enter the God-Eternals. So this card is actually insane. You might think it's 5 mana, but you're not even really getting a board wipe. Yeah, but the thing is, you're removing a creature, gaining life, milling possibly yourself, possibly them, depends, and getting a 4/4, right? So that's so much value in one card that I'm definitely going to try it. Also, it's on theme, which is fantastic. I don't think this is important. I don't think any of these are actually worthy to include. I'm going to try to make a rainbow ramp deck that includes these, but excuse me, actually, out of all of these, I don't think they're worth it. God-Eternal Kefnet actually seems pretty good, which I was incredibly surprised by. But I mean, if you think about it, we are going to be running a decent amount of these instants and sorceries, right? And just, essentially imagine, right? We play God-Eternal Kefnet, and then on our upkeep, we reveal Commence the Endgame. Or sorry, on our draw step, we reveal Commence the Endgame. Because Kefnet reduces the cost by 2, then this becomes a 4-mana card that draws us 2 cards, can't be countered, and has a mass X, where X is the number of cards in our hand. So, this is just potential to be insane. And it's a copy. It's not even casting the actual card. So you still have that card in your hand. Right, so I think Kefnet is going to be in the deck at least as a 1-of. But I'm not sure if there's going to be more. Let's see here. Invade the City is something that I considered. But because it's not instant, I actually just don't think it's usable, unfortunately. As I said, we're playing a decent number of instant sorceries. We might end up playing Searcher Azcanta, but it's not an instant, so it feels difficult to justify. Jakey Boy is not great. This works better with actual Jakey Boy, so it's not very good. Karn works best with other styles of decks. The minus does nothing for us. Let's see. I feel like, so I actually really did like Liliana, because her -4 is just really good. But I think that it's just better to have an actual deck for that and not care too much about this. Let's see. Obviously, Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Cool. This, I just don't think it's worth it. This might be decent as a sideboard option, but I think the counter tools that we have right now are totally fine. Nixilis' Cruelty actually I think is a card that might honestly be decent. Nixilis' Cruelty, because it's very similar to Vraska's Contempt, but you know, it's one cheaper. It doesn't cost double black, although that shouldn't matter too much because we're going to be playing a lot of black sources. You know, so it doesn't cost too much mana, and it's -5/-5, so it's not like a destroy effect. It is still an exile effect, so that's potentially very helpful. I considered Ralstorm Conduit. I'm not sure it's worth playing. I actually really like the idea of Ral's Outburst in this style of deck, just because it does, you know, it's actual fun, like it's card selection. It's not really card draw because you're just replacing one for one, but it can deal damage to any target. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in here as in the sideboard. Excuse me. There are a ton of Ral's Outburst. Ral's. Thank you. There are a ton of cards that can go into this deck, right? There's a few different ways you can try and build this style of deck. I know there is at least one other card that I planned on putting in here. Oh, right. So Elderspell, I think Elderspell is going to be decent during the super early game of War of the Spark coming out, because so many people are going to be trying to play control shenanigans, or Planeswalker shenanigans, but I don't believe that it's going to be good after that, because it hits only Planeswalkers, right? Like, if it was hit... I don't know. I feel as if... I'm not sure. The fact that it doesn't hit creatures essentially means this card's probably going to be useless. Now, I really like the idea of Tyrant Scorn, but I don't actually think it's very good. Widespread Brutality, that's what the other one was. So the reason I think Widespread Brutality might actually be pretty dang good is because we have two cards that amass already, and these are just decent by themselves. This obviously is a little bit weak of a board wipe, but for what it's worth, we already the other board wipe that we have access to in Grixis colors is a Ritual of Soot at this mana converted mana cost, and that can only get rid of creatures CMC 3 or less. Often those cards are going to be relatively small. So I think that Widespread Brutality is either going to be a main deck card, and I'm going to try it as main deck first, a main deck card, or it's likely to be a fantastic option in the sideboard. Let's see here. I do believe that that's it. I do want to go through just a second time, make sure there's nothing that I think I missed. I don't think there is. And what you really want to do is you want to make sure you know what exactly it is you want your deck to be doing, and how exactly you're going to get to that point, right? So this deck here is a control deck, right? It wants to control the board, but it doesn't necessarily need to counter things. It's more of make sure there's... I could add this. No, we actually can add this. So this is something I'll talk about that in just a moment. So we want to control the board until we're able to play our heavy hitters like Bolas and Bolas. We're not really necessarily... we don't care about people actually casting their cards, so, you know, the counterspells aren't terribly important. We do have the Thought Erasures because they're just one of the best cards for Grixis in this format. Excuse me, but that's not something necessarily important. We just want to make sure that we're not dying and we can play things. We're not the kind of counterspell control deck, so what we need is hand disruption, since if we're not playing a lot of counters, if there are certain things that we, like our removal suite can't answer, we will need counters to fill that gap. And then, of course, board wipes. Well, removal / board wipes. So the reason we can't run Karn's Bastion is because Nicol Bolas Dragon God is going to require us to have at least 19 black sources. I'm likely going to be running like 20 black sources, and that just won't leave enough room, I think, for Karn's Bastion. I'm relatively certain we're probably not even going to be able to play more than maybe 1 or 2 lands. We are going to be playing 26, but when 20 of those lands have to be black, we possibly are going to need to use things like Guildgates. But yeah, this is just kind of not usable. I do like the meme of Kaya's Ghost Form. I will be playing a Sultai Muldrotha deck with this, but I don't think there are any other cards that I'm really looking at from this set here. Yeah, I don't think so. So, you know, Augur of Bolas, I'll put Augur of Bolas on the sideboard just in case we actually do run enough, you know, creatures and things. Yeah, it's too much of a meme, I think. No, I think that is everything. Yeah, so I do believe that's everything. So now, what I want to do, I'm going to go back over here. I'm actually going to pop this over to this. I might as well do visual so you guys can look at something a little bit more appealing. So here I'm going to go back and say, how many of these cards do I know I'm going to want? Right, so Nicol Bolas, at least a 3. Right, I definitely want this to be at least 3 because being able to curve this into other Bolas is pretty good. How many of these do I want? You know, this is going to be kind of the main win condition. I want at least 3. I'm not sure if I want 4. I lean on the side of 3 because you don't really want them cluttering up your hand, but for what it's worth, they're probably going to die pretty frequently. I'm definitely going to need 4 Blood Crypts. I'm definitely going to need 4 Summits. Catacombs and Watery Grave are also the case. I don't need 4 of these. But Steam Vents, Sulfur Falls, they don't actually make black mana. And if you look right here, this is 16 black sources. So we want at least 3 more of those black sources. So let's go ahead and put this up. Yeah, to 3. Right? Math? Yes. Now we're at 23, right? So just at glance here, we're not going to be able to play any islands, any mountains, because we want to make sure that we have them in this form, right? So we have 5 more lands that we can play. Let's go ahead and do this up to, I think I can do 4 for this one, right? Am I dumb? No. And then 2 for this one. We'll do 3 and 3, actually. I think it splits it a little bit better. Why am I dumb? This is 26 land. 4 and 3, all right. Yeah, so I'll need to revisit how much blue and red mana I have once I actually go through the rest of the deck. So definitely want those. I think the mana base is where it should be for right now. 4 of these, easy. Let's see, Commence the Endgame. It is it's a draw spell, but it's an expensive draw spell. So I think I'm going to start it out as 2, and I might increase from there. I know the God-Eternals is a fantastic card, and what you want to be paying attention to as well is what your curve is looking right. So right now we kind of have a missing spot at 3 here, as well as we probably need to use a few more 2s. This is at 5, I believe. Yes, this is at 5, and we have a decent number of cards at 5, so we just want to be aware of that. We don't necessarily need to care too much, but since this is at 5, but it's really powerful, I'm going to put it at 3. This is at 4, this is at 4. I'm going to try a 3-3 split and see what that gets us. Okay, so we're at 48 cards with what we think is kind of the core of the deck. I think I'm going to try out just one God-Eternal Kefnet. The thing is, it's a powerful card if you're just playing on curve, right? A 4-mana, 4/5 flyer is a pretty good rate. But there are just other cards that I think I might want more instead of God-Eternal Kefnet, so I'm just going to leave this as one up right now. So, excuse me. We have 12 cards. We have 12 cards we can put in here, and what I am noticing, right, is that, excuse me, we do have a large gap in 3, right? So what in here costs 3? We have Nixilis Cruelty, we have Thief of Sanity. So let's go back and say, how much removal do we have? We have Contempt, we kind of have Brutality. I'm going to count that as half, so essentially this is 1.5. And then we have Enter the God-Eternals. Probably only want to count this as half as well, so we have 3, 6. We have 6 removal spells. And Nicol Bolas also kind of counts as 1.5. There's like 7. Let's see how much we have here. These I'll count as 1.5. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3.5. Yeah, probably only count. I'll count these as half as well. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have like 9. Kind of Angrath as well. Let's go halvesies. So it's like 9.5, 8, between 8 and 10, right? So we could probably use a little bit more removal, and I like Nixilis Cruelty, so we're going to go ahead and pop this out of here and try to shove back into here. Now, the reason I'm doing this instead of playing, inserting something like Cast Down or Moment of Craving or something is because it fills a gap in our mana base, as well as allows us to still use something like Search for Azcanta. So what I'm also finding is that on 2, I don't really have anything other than Thought Erasure to do, so I want to make sure I can get there with some Azcanta, and I do believe that Azcanta is still worth running, just because of how powerful the card can be. So Nixilis Cruelty, probably going to pop up to 2. I think 2 is possibly fine here, so we have 8 cards, right? So we have potential for 2 play sets. I think here I'm going to want more 3s, so I could just play the Thief of Sanity in the main deck, and I think I will try that. Alternatively, so I have 19. I would want more spells. So what I think I'm going to do, actually, I'll drop Thief back in here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try out Augur of Bolas, because it's a decent early game spell that even if it whiffs, it's still a decent blocker, right? So we're going to try some Augur of Bolas, but that does mean I need more Cowbell Baby. Now I need more instant sorceries, right? So this is technically, are these all instant? No, so we have only 2 non-instant sorceries? Yeah. So we have 17 here. To add 4, I think we're going to up the 3 area, because as you can see, not great. It's still only going to be up to 6, but you know, we have a lot of shotguns. It should be okay. So let's say we use Sinister Sabotage. Are we going to go full Sinister Sabotage, or are we going to go a few more Cruelties? I think I'm going to go a 3-3 split. So we'll save this here, and then we'll add in some Sinister Sabotage. Sinister Sabotage. Why are you gone? I will note, I don't like what's at the bottom here, but I really tried to tell OBS to just split them normally, but I couldn't figure out how because I'm a dunce. So let's throw in some Sabotage. I know I can just do this, but I'm not used to doing that. So this is now 60 cards, 19 distinct. How many? This is 22 distinct. So technically, this deck is more consistent in terms of what cards you're going to see than this one. But there's still one very important thing we need to do. Let's ask these people how many lands we should need. They say 27. Honestly, that's pretty close to reasonable. However, they say we only need 10 swamps. But if you go over to this fantastic guide by, who's this? Easy Mode. I know him. He's a great content creator. You should check him out. He did a really nice breakdown of how exactly you should, build your mana base, and he uses this guide, which is from Channel Fireball, it looks like. So, let's see. Our Dragon God here, where are you at? Our Dragon God here is a 5 CMC card. Here, it's a bit strange, right? Like there's 4C, 3CC, 2CC. What this is essentially color 1, 3 colors, color 2, right? So we're going to go, since there's 3 colors, we're going to look at the 2CC and add 1 more. So, 2CC, 18. We're going to add 1 more. So we need 19 in order to be able to get Nicol Bolas on curve 97% of the time. For his Justice Black, we need 19 swamps. So that's what we did here. Now let's look at our second most restrictive costs. We want to make sure we can play Thought Erasure on 2. That we go to 1C. Not CC, because CC is the same color, right? That'd be black, black. We want to go to 1C, and since it's 2 of those, we're going to add. So we need 14 blue sources. Do we have 14 blue sources? We have 4. Where's the... Yep. 8. 12. 15. Fantastic. Right now, we're totally fine on blue. Let's keep going now. We have God-Eternal Kefnet. Well, actually, I should go to Sinister Sabotage. Sinister Sabotage is 1 CC. That's 18. Do we have that? No. No, we don't. 4, 8, 12, 15. We need 3 more blue sources. How are we going to do that? We can either go up to 27 lands, which I don't love, or we can sub out all 3 of these swamps for word I am looking for. Why can't I think of words? Oh, we can sub them out for the Guildgates. My brain is broken. Or we can consider modifying what we have in that slot. So Sinister Sabotage, in my opinion, is better for the Bolas deck in terms of if you want to counterspell, right? Because the Surveil is very helpful. Comparing to Ionize. But if we look over at what Ionize would be, since it's a one color, different color, it would be over here and 2C. The reason for that is you only need one of the C's, but you need one for both. So if we go here and we just have one extra step, we would need 12 of each. We do have 12 of each. So for now, let's go ahead and cut the Sinister Sabotage. And yes, I technically knew about this before I started. I did try my best to actually like plan what the heck I'm talking about. So now we move to Ionize. Oops, too many Ionize, my apologies. But now we have to question, how often are we going to be holding up mana? There's instant, that's good, that's a sorcery. Instant, instant, sorcery speed, instant, sorcery speed. We don't have a ton of things to do at instant speed. So I might consider just foregoing Ionize. And if we do that, what we might want to do is add Thief of Sanity. What we could do, theoretically, is just add something else somewhere on the curve. We could add in some Angrath's Rampage. As we said, you know, we'd need 14 red and black. We have the black covered, and we should have the red covered as well, because it's like the same as blue, essentially. So we could do that. Is that something we want to do? We're going to bulk up our 2s, but that's actually not that bad, because we're a control deck and we want to make sure we can deal with all of these lower costed cards. What I'm going to do, because I do want to try out the new cards, is I'm going to include Angrath Rampage instead of Ionize. So I'm going to go ahead and drop out those Ionizes. As I said, yes, I already considered all of this nonsense. Angrath Rampage. And we're going to go ahead and put it up to 3. Now you might be saying, it's a heck of a lot of removal spells. Yes, but they have variations, right? This only hits creatures. This only hits creatures. This can hit planeswalkers. This only hits creatures. This can hit planeswalkers. So we've diversified our bonds, essentially. But it is of note that there are a decent number of removal. But that should be fine. Because for the most part, we're going to be coming up against decks that either have creatures or planeswalkers. That's usually how people win. So, we've kind of settled that issue of the 1cc. Angrath's Rampage should be 14. Should be 14 in each. I think it's 15. So that's fine. This should be no big deal. Let's go on to God-Eternal Kefnet. That is a 2cc card. 2cc. We need 16. That's one off. So we're going to go ahead and take away one of these swamps. Just one. Because that's all we need. We had 15. And we're going to go and put a Dimir Guildgate in there. Why Dimir Guildgate as opposed to whatever the heck the other tap common card is? Because I want to. Shut up. You can theoretically play whatever blue-black tap land you want. I'm just going to play the Guildgate. So that theoretically works. And since, you know, we have a glut of 2-drop cards, that's actually not that bad. We can play it on turn 3 a lot of the times and not really care. What we're likely going to be doing in this deck is turn 1, we're playing a tap land, Shock, or our Catacomb, or our Guildgate. Turn 2, we're going to play an untapped land, either shocking ourselves or just like a check land, and doing something. And then on turn 3, since we're likely going to have another 2-drop to play, we can go ahead and play another tap land and do something, right? So that's kind of what we can do with this sort of strange curve. So it does make it a little bit better that we have a strange curve, right? That we don't have too many 3s, because it allows us to get away with this turn 3 functionally being for having a tap card and playing a single 2-drop. And then, of course, the following turns, hopefully you're going to be able to play whatever you need, untapped, and do things. So, 2cc, that's fine. We also have 2 black. That's also fine. We have plenty of black, essentially. Don't have to worry about. Here we have 1 black, red. So what that here is a 4 mana spell. And we're going to consider the red here. So, right, 2cc. Should move it up 1. It says we need 17. Are we going to keep Widespread Brutality? And if not, what are we going to replace it with? So what you could do here is you can make a decision on trimming down a lot of your blue or trimming down a lot of your red. I personally am going to actually do something slightly different. I'm going to decide to trim down slightly on my brutalities, and I'm going to choose to go up a land because I think that's the best way for the deck to properly function. Because I believe that the blue and the red could benefit by increasing this, we're going to increase the Sulfur Falls. Right. So now we're at, let's see, for red, we have 4, 8, 16. What does that say? 17. Okay. We'll need one more Guildgate. Go and drop this, and let's add... we could add a Rakdos Guildgate. Yeah, since we're taking away a swamp and we need to maintain the consistency for our black mana, we're going to add a Rakdos Guildgate. Cool. So we should be fine. Just to double check, this should be totally fine. This, enter the God-Eternals. This is a 5 mana. It is essentially a 3 CC. So this goes up to 15. Totally fine. After 5, you pretty much don't need to care because the numbers get lower since you're so much later in the game. So theoretically, this is what I'm looking at for the finalized deck. And you never want to, you never want to really commit to a deck until you're able to test it a lot. I currently cannot test it. But what I like to do is I like to look at things in visual mode and see what my lines are, right? So I can see pretty easily that my lines are going to be always something on turn 2. It's almost impossible for this deck not to have something on turn 2, and pretty decent to have something on turn 3. You know, we have a total of 16 things to do on turns 1 and 3, between those turns, whatever. After doing that, I have really good turns 4 into turns 5, right? These are all very powerful cards to have on turn 5, and these are fantastic ways of going into them. So, you know, Nicol into Nicol, for example, is insane. You get to draw a card, each opponent exiles a card. It's great. It's just great. You know, you'll have protection of your Bolas. Your opponent's going to have like a card down. It's going to be fantastic. But even if you don't do that, right? You play God-Eternal Kefnet. You play Enter the God-Eternals. You now have a 4/5, a creature dead. You've gained 4 life. You have another 4. You have a 4/4, and you've milled someone. I'm not sure how exactly I'm going to use the mill, but that's something that you should note, is that we currently don't really have a great way of using our graveyard for anything. You know, the Azcanta helps, but you might consider, or I might consider, once I play with this deck a bit more, to include more like things with flashback, like our Cameras Insights and things. So, you know, that is something to consider. But for right now, since the video's gone a bit long, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk briefly about what I think this deck is potentially missing in the main deck. The very obvious one is lower cost card draw. So something I might actually do in the sideboard is include some number of Cameras Insights, or, you know, Ral's Outburst is also relatively decent. But I would definitely consider running a few more draw spells against the control decks, right? When you know your opponent isn't going to be playing many creatures, you just drop these 3, right? That's just 3 of those gone. You probably drop these as well, but don't need the board wipes. This is still fine, because, you know, it still hits some creatures that your opponents are likely to play. But, you know, there's plenty of cards that you can just get rid of, right? Against a control deck. And what you're going to want against control is draw. So you'd want to include some number of draw, probably 2 to 3. I'm also noticing not as much discard as this version, and I really like the discard, so probably a couple of duress here and there. Another low way to pressure control is helpful, so I'd probably still run like 4 Thief Sandies because the card's just freaking stupid. Is there anything that I think this deck might struggle with hard? It could have an issue with Sultai Midrange, because Sultai Midrange can technically go big and wide relatively quickly if they have the really like nut draw with Wild Growth Walker and like Jailer Injury and things like that. So our Widespread Brutality might actually not be sufficient to deal with that style of board, and I'm not entirely sure what card I would run in that instance, but there's probably something that I would be able to think of. So I think, it's D&D. I think that this is what I'd settle on for now, and I might end up changing things in the future, but 27 lands, tons of 2-drops, tons of 4-drops, and a decent number of 5-drops, plus a nice commencing of the endgame. I think this is totally reasonable. And I'm going to click save, and I will, you know what, I'll go ahead and put it public. Oh, I have to go to the freaking edit thing. There we go. And I will put it public so that people can look at it and make fun of me. How much does this deck cost? Where's the buy button? I thought that was just a buy button. Why am I sad? Whatever, who cares? It's looking like a decent amount of money. But still, no. That's pretty much it, I guess. That's how I upgrade decks. I think what I might do is today, which is Saturday for you all, I might stream updating some of my decks actually. Like update some zombies and Muldrotha and stuff. I think I might do that. So be on the lookout for that. I'll post it. I'll post it on my community tab, I suppose. But yeah, I hope. I know this video is not going to get a ton of traction just because it's not, you know, a gameplay video. But I thought it was something that was interesting, and something that some people might want to see. So, you know, I'd like to thank my patrons, especially Salamander, Croft, and Zin, for their continued support. If you'd like to join them on Patreon and support the channel, you'll find links to that down in the description below. Or you can become a channel member like the two that we have now by clicking that join button. You can also head over to the Discord server where we chat, play games, and it's like the easiest way to ask me questions. You know, you can just at me in like any of the relevant channels, and that's the easiest way to get my attention, frankly. Yeah, I do of course hope you've enjoyed this. If you did, go and tap that like button, add subscription to your mana pool, cast a comment to the comment section down below, pass the turn and the vid to some of your friends. Also, totally check out Mr. Easy Mode because he's great. And until next time, I will be one.